Welcome to the Tech Savvy Professor podcast, which features two faculty members who love tech and love making it part of their work. I'm Marty Gensius, program co-coordinator at Kent State University.
And I'm Eric Perry, program director at Divine Mercy University.
So you had the week off and just today returned to, well, you were out doing family stuff for the week. You took some, I guess, vacation time? Is that
Yeah,
right?
so, well, kind of. Yeah, last week we took a little family trip. We were supposed to be at the beach, and that did not work out. We ended up going to an indoor water park in Sandusky. It was like our fallback option just because of time constraints and other things that happened. So we ended up there. It was a good time. And then I left from there 2 days later to supervise a residency for our students last week. So I've been to my home office a lot more than usual.
So what I'm hearing from that story is you drove right past Kent, Ohio.
I did. I did. Right through. Yep.
And I could have caught you on I-80 and your family, but you had a good time in a water park in Sandusky. Can I ask what happened to the beach?
Yeah, I mean, it was just stuff had come up. My daughter does competitive dance. So there was an opportunity for her to audition for a dance with a pretty famous choreographer, I guess. And we would have never made it there and had enough time to stay and have a good time and come back had we went with the beach. So she really wanted to do it. So we pivoted and, it was good. She made the dance and she's excited. So it all worked out.
Well, last week at Kent State was the first week of classes. So a lot of adjustments. This week is when the meetings are rolling in because everybody now needs to have a meeting. And I went to a few meetings last week that were everything that I had read in email prior to coming to the meeting. So, that's the way it goes, first week of classes. One of the things that I'm becoming aware of as I get older and sit on more meetings and sit with more committees, particularly if you're working with committees or groups that are not located easily with you. So outside of your program, you've got members on a committee, is how do you manage projects if you're all involved in projects? And I have a couple of big projects that I'm doing with associations and that I have planned with associations. And we have people scattered all over the U.S. And as a result, they're being put together in a committee. And is there a better way of doing that than using email? So that's kind of the topic for today. And the real question is, why do you want to move past email? I find it a bit frustrating because people still operate in that mode. And there are plenty of tools out there that we could be using, but I just can't get folks on board with the tools. And we'll talk about some of them today for folks that are, we're doing project management beyond email is the topic for today.
Yeah, and buy-in is by and large the biggest issue, and I think Google Docs, the shared doc format has helped some, to get just exclusively out of the email kind of space. You can see what each other's doing. You can track a little bit. But I mean, in terms of getting things done, having deadlines, organizing tasks, I've done a lot with course development. So it's been a lot easier when we've had a tool that has a lot more functionality than just here's your task in Google Docs.
Yeah, and we've talked about Slack in the past as a way to have sort of a standing platform. Think of it as a wiki where people can add to a shared space. And I think many people are know of Slack, but I'm not sure how many people are using Slack
Mhm.
in higher education. I would love to have all of our communications on Slack, besides those that are confidential in nature, or student information that have FERPA issues with it. Slack used to be open and used to have, you could just get an account, and then if you wanted all this extra stuff, you could pay for the account. But I was using Slack, and with sort of unlimited resources, but not all the tools that were available. And it was free and it was great. And then, I don't know, 3 years ago or so, 4 years ago, they decided to say, okay, we're only going to retain stuff for 90 days. Yeah, sometimes that's not a big deal either. I don't look at emails from 90 days ago.
Mhm.
But, if you're using it for document storage and stuff like that, it becomes a bit of a bigger problem. So, but that portion of it's still free. And I'm in plenty of Slack groups that are information and kind of in the moment, this is what we're doing this week sort of activities with Slack. So I
Mhm.
really like it. I wished I could have gotten faculty using a platform like that. Reminds me of the old Lotus Notes from years ago, where you would work in a company or work in a business, and it would be sort of it's like an interterminal communicator where somebody's sitting on another floor in another box, and you can send them a message, and basically the on screen notifications with Slack would allow you to do those kinds of things if people had it set up that way. So
Yeah, it's like a boosted kind of aim for those of you who use that too.
yeah, yeah.
That's what it made me think of was aim.
So in our notes, if you're interested in Slack, we have some ways of putting Slack together with project management, and it gives you like a 30-minute starter kit, basically what you can do in 30 minutes to get the process going. It also has scenarios for using Slack or project management in teaching cases. And one of it talks about is, curriculum development and using these platforms for curriculum development. And then also research and research cases on how you can use it for developing IRBs and things like that, and creating a whole project, maybe around a grant on a project management system that would work. So,
Yeah, I think there's a lot of utility there. You and I used Slack a while back,
yeah.
um, and I think for things like, so my background, I did a lot of curriculum development and instructional design while studying for my master's. It was something I just kind of fell into, um, and found myself now. We'll talk about Monday in a little bit. That's what we use
Mm-hmm.
at Divine Mercy. But found myself realizing this would have been great, for those days to really be able to organize things, especially when there's a lot of stakeholders, there's a lot of people who need to give input or provide information or documentation, and tracking that in a way that makes sense. I think now it helps you create that workflow to get things done in a reasonable amount of time,
Mm-hmm.
that's visible to everybody, like in real time. So, in addition, like you said, there's task processes, forms set up. There's ways to help kind of streamline what you're doing. And just like I love to cancel a meeting, I love to cancel a task. If there's a simpler way to do things, it's almost easier to see that gap in the process when you're walking through this. Most of these softwares are going to have some way to distinguish between your tasks, your different benchmarks that you're going to need to hit, your milestones. If you organize in phases, I think about this in terms of course development. So, we
Mm-hmm.
kind of start out with what is the texts we're basing the course around. what are the primary resources, and then moving on to like the assignments and assessment, and then building out the supplemental resources. So like you can actually stage things out so that you get things done in a way that makes sense. You're not just kind of bouncing all over the place, throwing information together like you might in a Google Doc.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to sell to those, that time savings is definitely worth putting in the time to organizing your project.
Yeah. Part of why I got interested in this was you had mentioned Monday as an app, and we'll show you at least the homepage of that for folks who are watching the video, and we can talk about them as they go. And and I went on search to look for a variety of these services, and there's lots of these project management services out there. And I connected with one, and I said, "Hey, listen, I'm working for an associate. I'm not working for an association. I volunteer for an association, as are other members who are on this team that I'm working with, and we have a project that we need to do. And the project would benefit by having a project manager where we could look at the different tasks that need to be done. And I'm thinking of what they call a Gantt chart, where you have timelines and you have when things start and when things stop and who's involved in the task, what needs to be done. Very useful sort of format. And so I connected with this place, and they did have, I could sign up and I could have a single account that was free for me to play with all the tools that I wanted to. But then they had paid accounts. I didn't see anything about educational discounts, or so I basically contacted them and said, "Hey, here's my situation. Is there anything that you offer that fits within, pro bono kind of stuff that I can do with this small group of 8 people to use the platform?" And I was pursued by a marketing guy and a salesperson for the last 4 weeks. And then finally, it's like, okay, this is wonderful. You can tell me all this stuff that you can do. And it's like, maybe you missed my last email. Maybe, yeah, I'm just emailing you again to find out. I'm like, okay, give me, what can you do for me? What's the bottom line?
Mm.
And they said $20 per person per month. So with 8 people in the group, $160 per month.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I wrote him back. I said, you didn't quite understand when I said we're just a group of unpaid volunteers who are trying to get this project done. Is there anything you can help me with that? And they came back and the guy said, no, my quote is $19 per person per month. And I'm like, you're selling something to me that I'm not capable of buying, and you know that. So you don't need to keep asking me questions. What do you think of that, that deal? And that was the end of our relationship. So it put me on the search for open source project managers and some services that allow you to use a portion of the services with a number of people with a limited amount of projects for free. And I found a few, and I've put them. They'll be in the show notes, and we'll talk about them a bit. So that's what got me in this direction. Now the whole thing is, I would be excited to use something like this, but I don't think the people I work with on these committees are ready to jump on board with having to do or use a platform. And maybe you can speak a little bit to that, because you've transitioned to Monday as an app. So how did faculty handle that?
Authority helps, right? I mean, there was a requirement, that you must use said software to complete your tasks, right? So, but that doesn't mean everybody was happy about it or really utilized it in the way it was supposed to be used. So, even if you have that kind of acquiescence for folks
Hmm.
to kind of do it. It doesn't mean they're really getting the most out of it. And I think as a project manager, though, that visibility can be really, really helpful. If you need to show them the benefit, and I think that's really where it comes in. How is this going to save them time? Because they have to learn it. And I think particularly I work with primarily remote faculty who teach in an online environment. They already use 7 or 8 different systems in the course of their work week. So adding another one, you can get that resistance. Um, so I mean, I've had some success with it. Some folks who like it, and some folks who are like, "Yeah, I'll do what you tell me," but haven't really seen the benefit.
Yeah, but the advantage of working with people who are working remotely and working on 7 different systems is at the same time, the next system, the learning curve for it is not as difficult as someone who, is in office and works on their computer and is not kind of networked or
Mm-hmm.
connected to other people. I remember a scenario, this was with Google Docs when it came out. I was doing a cake rep, I was chairing a cake rep visit, and I had a team of like 5 people. It was a multi-site place, and I said we're going to use Google Doc and we're going to collectively write on one document. And it was a struggle for some folks that they could not get used to the idea that they sign in and then they start doing the writing on this. And at the same time, there are other people writing on the document. And in one case, my local group that I was working with, because this was a huge university system that we were dealing with, were all sitting around a table in a hotel in the evening, all on Google Doc, although we were in the same room. And the kind of resistance that you would get is things like, can't I just write my stuff up on docs on a Word document, send it to you, and then you can copy and paste it in? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, I don't want to be your secretary anymore. And so trying to when you said authority, I think that was a good case scenario. Unfortunately, with volunteers, you don't have that kind of authority. And there are some
Mm-hmm.
things I attempted to do with volunteer groups where people just stop working on it because the attrition that happens with volunteer groups, but also because of the path that we took to do it. So let's talk about a few of these. And again, there'll be notes in there in show notes about some things to think about if you're going to start up and wanting to combine something like a Slack or Slack like messenger system plus using a project manager. So you're just not doing everything through email and copies version 1 of the document, version 2 of the document, et cetera, et cetera. So the one that I found and I attempted to use before with another association, and then the project got stopped with the association, so we never took it to full round, was a app called Asana. And Asana is one of those that allows you to have individual accounts. You can invite people to it. I think I might have sent you an invitation, Eric. And it has workspaces set up where you can set up various reports, portfolios. It's got a lot of good stuff that you can do going into procedures and creating kind of charts and due dates in list format, or you can do it in other formats too. You can share it in other formats. So it's I kind of like it as an app so far. And it goes through their server, so it's web based in that sense. However, you can get an app for your phone and do stuff basically through the app on your phone if you want to do it that way.
Yeah, I
And
haven't got a
then,
chance to tinker with it quite yet, but it's in my favorites. I'm gonna give it a go.
yeah. And then this one, I'm going to let you talk about Monday.
Yeah, so Monday has a free tier. So you can start out with some of the basic features on the free tier. It uses what's called boards to kind of organize your projects. Um, there's tons of templates, things to help you get started. There are three, I think, additional tiers plus an enterprise tier. Monday's gained a lot of ground, so they also have a CRM. Um, so they function in that space too. Um, I was trying to pull up and see. My boards aren't here right now, or I would share those. But that's how it kind of helps to organize. You create workspaces. It feels very similar to what was within Slack. Um, you can invite members to collaborate with you, and it integrates with the Google Workspace. So there's a lot of crossover there. So if you're already working within Google, it's pretty easy to kind of integrate how you're working there. The larger tiers have different views. They have different access that you can provide guests access to view your boards. You can combine your boards into different dashboards. So it's really about, how deep you're going to get into this. I've really found that even the basic plan, which is what I had on my own before I came on with Divine Mercy and had an enterprise account, was enough to be able to kind of collaborate and do what we needed to do. So I think it can be really useful.
Yeah, I'm looking at the pricing on it, and you can do the free tier, but it's up to 2 seats.
Right, that's
So
right.
it's you and someone else in order to that. If you got anything more than that, then you're looking at $9 per seat per month, and it's billed annually. So you're putting an investment in that part from the basic standpoint. So
Yeah, and keep in
interesting.
mind that
Yeah.
viewers can come in and look, but they can't collaborate. So if you're going to get beyond that, you also have to have people that are going to pay for their own account, or you need to pay for their account, right? Beyond those two collaborators.
Yeah.
Um, it's just something to consider.
Yeah. The next one I want to talk about is Taiga. And I did a search for free and open source project management tools, and Taiga came up as one of them. And so I loaded it. It does have a pricing structure where Cloud Basic, which is what I have, is free. It's unlimited number of users, unlimited number of projects, estimation of tool, Taiga seed, translated, and then community support. And then you can also self-host it, so you could put it on your server if you wanted to, or you can use the Cloud Basic. If you want to go into more premium account, then you pay for some things that from that. But I started one up, and I'm showing it here. I just started a Kanban for policy and procedures manual that I might be working on, and I sent an invitation to Eric. There you go. I sent an invitation to you to join the policy and procedure manual, and I call it a test project, and we can then shift information into Kanban. I really this is my second choice, I think, in terms of simple stuff that needs to be done and organizing teams around it. So that one I would
Yeah,
suggest you take a look at.
yeah, definitely going to take a look at that one. There was one I wanted to kind of. I know we have a whole list of these, but I was looking at lean time,
Okay.
and the landing page kind of piqued my interest. So it says project management for the non-project manager, built with ADHD and neurodivergence in mind, rooted in
Whoa.
behavioral science and boosted with AI. So I'm kind of interested to see, you know, whether or not that makes sense here. I mean, it does look like it's organized in ways that similar kind of programs are. Um, but I'm interested to see what the account tiers look like. I haven't really taken a close look at this one, but I thought that was interesting if that's actually the case.
Okay, so a monthly subscription for Lean Time Pro, unlimited do's and don'ts, AI powered task manager, 14-day trial, $12 per user per month.
Yeah, I mean they do. I like this work management for diverse minds. I'm curious whether all that's based on. I'm gonna have to do some digging on this one, but it certainly piqued my interest.
All right. Um, Other ones that we have here is a Redmine, which is another one that's it's a mature system. It's flexible with trackers and wikis. It has a huge plugin ecosystem. It's a little dated in terms of the user interface, and sometimes can be a little bit fiddly according to reviews. But that's another one to look at. Open source project management is another one, or open project, and it's a full suite. It's got Gantt, agile boards, time tracking. It's mature docs, robust community edition. It's heavier to administer, and some advanced features are gated only to enterprise. So, again, looking at the pricing there, you have a free plan. I'm looking at the price calculation up to 20, it looks like.
Better than some others.
Yeah, and then they have basics for 25 minimum users, etc. So that's interesting. That's another one to look at. We can open source Kanban.
Mm-hmm.
And for folks who aren't familiar with what Kanban is like, imagine that wall of stickies that you have columns of, like what's the task, who's going to do it, what part is it in? Is it in discussion? Is it in action? Is it complete? And you're moving these boards from one column to another as projects advance, and that's what a Kanban is. And it has all sorts of information about boards, lists, cards that you can do. So we can, WEKEKAN.FI. And then Kanboard, KANBORD.org, also provides another option for folks to choose from. And Kanboard is ultralight, minimal. It has a minimal Kanban, quick self-hosting, solid docs. It's constantly in management mode, though. It says it's open source project management software, but projects are in maintenance mode as it's set up this way. And then last couple of ones, projects meet knowledge, meet AI. This is Plane, Plane. And it again, you can see, if you look at it or go to the home landing page, you can see how it basically is moving different cards from backlog, to do, in progress, and done, with people connected to the cards, to the different, based on the different projects.
And they did something pretty interesting with the pricing. So if you scroll down past the tiers itself, they have their own comparison of some of the services that we've talked about here. Confluence is another popular one that folks will use in kind of a more corporate space, but it compares by user cost with their service, which I think is pretty interesting.
That's interesting. And of course, theirs is always the cheapest.
Well, yeah. Why else would you put that there? It's like that progressive, tool,
Now,
the insurance checking tool.
yeah. This, however, has up to 12 seats free. So that's interesting. Also, they provide a platform that you can do some minimalist stuff in, but it is 12 seats for free. It's got a modern UI. It has issues, sprints, roadmaps, and it's still evolving. A smaller academic user base right now with Plain. And then the last one we'll talk about is Deck, Nextcloud Deck. The pros with it are the kanban is tightly integrated with Nextcloud files, calendar, mobile apps are available. It does require a Nextcloud instance with the setup, so that's a little bit more difficult about that. So I don't know if you have any more to add with this, Eric.
I don't. I really think, though, that it has utility if you're doing project-based work. So I really enjoyed using it for course development. I think you need to pay close attention to what your costs are and what your buy-in is going to be like. Do you have control over that process, or do you need folks to really assent to using it? And is it going to save you time and visibility? It can really be worth it. Now, if I'm just teaching and I'm not really working on anything project-based, I don't know that it's really useful. But in building out courses and doing things that require multiple inputs, multiple dates and steps, it can be a huge resource.
Yeah. I am excited about it. I wish I had a team to be able to play with this project and learn more about it. It's one of those technologies that I have always wanted to learn more about, particularly from leadership and organizational standpoints, and my interest in growing in that area, that these kinds of project managers I think are essential. I just need a group of folks that are willing to work around in using one of these. And in order for that to happen, I have to set something up for them to be able to do it. And so I've got a couple of that I've leaned into, and it would be fun to work out projects with this, with willing co-collaborators using one of these project management systems. I would encourage folks who are listening to the podcast or looking at this video to check the show notes, because we have links to all of these different platforms. And you just might want to take a look at some of them and download what you need to download to try one out and to play around with it, as I've begun to do, and see if you can find some common collaborators around a project or a thing that you're going to do. You got anything else to add, Eric?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, well, you know what that means. That means it's time to get back to the workday. You can email us at thepodtalknetwork@gmail.com. Also, our website, thepodtalk.net. Look for us on Spotify, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, and all other podcast servers. Our bumper music is from Philip Gross, Rast, from the Free Music Archive. Everything you need to know about us and the other podcasts that we do, you can find at thepodtalk.net. Look for our other shows, including Circular Firing Squad, which we're headed into our 94th episode of that, and the new show on spatial computing called Vision Profiles, which is a weekly show that we're up to 64 episodes now. That's it for this episode. Thanks for subscribing to the Tech Savvy Professor.